Beauty is a unique industry, one that's glamorous and intensely personal. It makes products like any other: cosmetics, hair care, and perfume. Yet these items can be more than accessories. For some, they become part of your identity. Of course, the saying goes, beauty is only skin deep. But the industry is now holding up a mirror to our changing world in terms of what we want and the environmental impact of how it's made. On this episode of Leaders with Lacqua Goes Green, I head to Paris to meet the man in charge of the world's largest beauty company, L'Oreal. Nicolas Hieronimus describes himself as a beauty junkie, overseeing more than 80,000 employees over 150 countries. The beauty market is worth hundreds of billions of dollars, with L'Oreal at the top of the tree. In a wide-ranging interview, I tried to get beneath the veneer to understand the man, the company, and its efforts to help the most beautiful thing of all, our planet. Nicolas Hieronimus, thank you so much for joining us on Leaders.
Hello, Francine. Very nice being with you.
I mean, this is fun. It feels glamorous. Do you love your job?
I love my job. You know, I've been working for L'Oreal for 36 years now. So I guess it's a perfect proof that I love it.
So do you remember that first day when you joined L'Oreal? Did you think, actually, I want to get to the top, and why was it your company?
Well, I remember my first interviews because I was interviewing with many consumer good companies, and I chose L'Oreal not because I knew much about beauty at the time, even though I liked the importance of looks and style, but I was struck by the fact that there was an atmosphere of art and creativity in this big hall. L'Oreal was the owner of the Art Curial Gallery, and there were lots of art pieces in the hall, and lots of glamorous people, and it felt like a very exciting place to work with. I absolutely did not intend or even think of rising to the top. I just thought I was here to learn, and L'Oreal is a great school.
How has the beauty industry actually changed in the last 36 years? Is it more high-end? Has it become bigger? We talk about men a lot more.
Well, first of all, the great thing about beauty is that since the dawn of time, it is an essential need for humanity. You look at, I don't know if you ever saw that book we published, that's 100,000 Years of Beauty. When you see that in the caves, you could see paintings of makeup on the bodies. Of course, in Egypt, men and women were already using eye makeup and fragrances. So because it's so much part of being a human, it's a market that's been constantly growing. So it's a market that's 270 billion euros, and it's growing. And our assessment is that by 2030, it should be close to 400 billion, and it's growing thanks to the rise of middle classes that are aspiring to great products. It's premiumizing. People want more and more good products, so the prices are going up. And indeed, it's for everybody. So of course, women, but men are using more and more beauty products. People that get old need to continue to use beauty products. So it starts very early, and you use beauty till the end of your life. So it's a very dynamic market, and it's going to continue to grow in the next years.
But if it's lucrative and it grows, it also means you're going to have a lot more rivals.
We are the leaders of that market, but we have only 14% approximately of the market, which means that we still have 86% to conquer, at least some of it. There is more competition. There's lots of brands. One of the things that has changed over the years is that some of the barriers to entry, like with the rise of e-commerce or social networks, has allowed many brands to appear, to be created, many indie brands, as we call them, plus big groups. There's a lot of churn in the indie brands, so not many appear, few stay. And the good thing is that it forces companies like us, with our big brands, but also small brands, because we acquire some of these indie brands, to constantly reinvent ourselves, adapt to the new times. We are a very agile company.
You have pretty formidable competitors. You have Hermès entering the market of beauty. You have LVMH also really trying to focus on that.
Well, there's a lot of competition and lots of people that want to enter beauty, which proves that it's a very lucrative, as you say, and attractive market. But then it's a market that requires a lot of expertise. You know, we only do beauty, and we've been doing beauty for 114 years. There are more than tricks of the trade. It's about research, it's about knowing the skin, knowing about hair. It's also about understanding the cultural differences around the globe, because you can have global brands, but you always have to adapt your beauty offering to the local specificities, whether climate, religion, culture. And this is something that you do not improvise. And by the way, many of the brands that are created, small brands, have a very hard time expanding beyond their home market. And as far as the big groups, they are very strong competitors, but we are getting share every year, so I guess we are doing a bit better.
What will grow the most?
Well, right now and for the last couple of years, and probably for the next couple of years, the fastest growing division has been dermatological beauty, because there's a very strong desire for healthy beauty, products that are both safe, that are solving your skin issues, and whether because of the environment, because of the UV rays, because of stress. There's lots of skin issues that need to be addressed by products that are designed by and with dermatologists and prescribed by dermatologists. So brands like CeraVe or La Roche-Posay are just going through the roof. So,
but it's also influencers, right?
Yeah, it's influencers, but influencers, in the end, they're a new way to engage consumers. But influencers, of course, they can be remunerated, but in the end, most of the organic content and the most powerful content is sincere and genuine, and consumers want authenticity. So influencers are just a way to amplify the quality of the product. So dermatological beauty, super strong, but also L'Oreal Luxe for the last decade. I had the pleasure to be running this division, has been really the number one growth driver of the groups, with the acceleration in China in particular, where we have more than 30% market share of the luxury market.
And that's bigger margins?
It's bigger margins. The success is the success of quality. In the end, in this world where people have growing expectations, sometimes in inflationary times like this one, they pay more attention to how they spend their money, and they want their money's worth. So they're always going to go for products that deliver, both on efficacy but also on pleasure of use. And as you know, we spend €1 billion every year on research. We make sure that we do create the best products, and that when people try our brands, they stick to it. So that's the number one recipe of our success.
I mean, there's also the lipstick index, which I've always been fascinated by. So in hard economic times, actually, the sales of lipsticks go up.
The lipstick index proves right every time, and it has proven right even in the
so is it going up or
post-COVID? No, it's going up. Okay. It's going up. It continues to. The only moment when it was actually not a good moment for lipstick is when we're all wearing masks, or staying home, or both. So now that masks are off in most countries,
people wore perfumes, didn't they?
Fragrance is the most spectacular post-COVID acceleration. We expected fragrance to come back because just of social life resuming, but we see that there's been an augmentation of the role of fragrance, precisely about this, from smelling good to feeling good. And today, whether in America, in Europe, and of course, and we're very interested in China, there's a fragrance explosion. And as we are the worldwide number ones in fragrance, we are very happy about this.
If you're Mediterranean, it's, I guess, more likely that you grow up wearing a fragrance, maybe every day, maybe from teenage years. Are there parts of the world where actually that's only starting to be adopted now? And is that really the market you want to be in?
People used to have one fragrance. My mother, I offered her all the fragrances of the L'Oreal group. I never managed to get her to use something else than a fragrance which is actually not a L'Oreal one. So a lot of people were wearing the same fragrance all their life. Now, the younger population, they have 2, 3, 4, 5 fragrances, because they will have one for work, one to meet the parents, one to go on a date, etc., etc. So that increased consumption. But the part of the world where it's new and growing very fast is China. China was not a fragrance market. It was mainly a skincare market and then a makeup market. And fragrance, which is still only 10-ish% of the total selective market, but is growing high double digits. And that's really been something that's happened over the last 3-4 years. And as the Chinese consumers are both sophisticated and like premium, but also they do not know fragrances as well as European consumers, they go more for the premium end collection, what we call collection fragrances, which are more expensive, but also that describe what you're going to smell.
But this has to be in store. Yeah. Or do people actually buy it online?
They go to stores, they try, they smell, they get some advice. And then, depending on the experience, either they come back to stores or they repurchase online. If they like a fragrance, then it's easy to repurchase it online.
Coming up, Nicolas Hieronimus explains the importance of trying every single product that L'Oreal makes, as well as a few from his competitors. Nicolas Hieronimus has spent nearly 4 decades working at the biggest beauty company in the world, L'Oreal. The industry is surprisingly resilient, but the company takes nothing for granted, spending around 1 billion euros in research and development every year. I ask him about the changes he's seen and the key to prolonged success. You seem to love your products.
I love my products.
Do you try them all?
I try them all. I try my products. I try competition just to make sure we have the best. And sometimes, we see an interesting competitive products that we have to step up to. But most of the time, I use our products. Yeah,
How much do you use them for? I mean, this is very practical advice. But to know whether a product works or not, is it 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Do you have to give it a couple of months?
I use my products every day. And in any product, it depends on the categories. But you have 2 ways to assess a product. One is what we call instant gratification. So do you like it? Does it smell good? Does it make your skin more supple or less itchy if you've got an issue? And then you need 6 weeks. If you're talking about anti-aging products, you probably would need 6 weeks to see real, wrinkle reduction or age spot reduction. So you have to use several.
You're like a beauty junkie.
I am a beauty junkie. I run the #1 beauty company in the world, and so I have to be a beauty junkie. But it's fascinating because it's, I guess you use beauty products. It's a very nice little treat that you take care of yourself every day. We talk a lot about self-betterment today. People are very much into fitness, into making sure they look better, feel better, and beauty products are really part of that routine and that spirit. So I love it.
And male skincare has actually come quite a long way. Was that the biggest? What's been your biggest surprise of how, I guess, beauty's changed in the last 10 years?
What's the biggest transformation happening in beauty is what we call beauty tech, is the help of technology to augment the performance of beauty products, either through diagnosis or through even personalized made-to-measure beauty products. And that's probably the future of beauty. So
is this AI? You spend an enormous amount, right, of your sales in marketing, but also developing like R&D.
Yeah.
I think 30%,
well,
more or less.
We spend 1 billion in R&D, 3% of our turnover, in different, A&P, advertising and promotion. It depends on the countries, but it's somewhere between 25 and 35%, depending on the countries and the number of categories we have to animate. But we also spend more than 1 billion euro every year in tech, in technology, and that's our pledge to become the leader of beauty tech. And here we use AI. We use AI to augment our researchers, to invent new ways to formulate products, to go faster. We use AI to provide the best advice to consumers. Color matching, skincare diagnosis is very important. In the end, consumers are passionate about beauty. Beauty is the #1 topic of conversation on TikTok, for example. It's something that passions people, but it's a jungle out there. There's so many products, so you need to help people choose. So curation is a very important part, and to help people make the right choices, you need some sort of either diagnosis or virtual try-on so that they see which shades are going to fit better, same for hair. So technology is a great help, not only to create new products, but also to make consumers happier about the products.
So how does it fit with something like Asop, which you buy, you bought for a significant amount of money, but expect to grow it much more, which is much more traditional, high-end premium brand?
I think it's a brand, and of course it's a brand that's a natural ingredients-based brand, so it taps into many of the ascending trends. So it's a beautiful brand, fantastically developed by the teams that are in charge and whom we're going to be welcoming at L'Oreal, and a great experiential brand. So I'm very, very excited about it. And as it's a brand that just has 2 stores in China and is not present in travel retail, we have lots of growth opportunities for it.
So you really try the products or use the products before any acquisition?
Of course. I try the product. Actually, as far as Asop was concerned, I tried it before there was even a possibility to acquire it. But yeah, you have to try the products. We're, of course, beyond trying, when we make any acquisition, we have the formulas analyzed by our labs, making sure that they are both good products, that they are true to what they say, which is not always the case for some of the indie brands, and that they are ticking all the regulatory boxes, authorized ingredients. And then, of course, we try it because
you need to know.
You need to know, and then you need to love the brands you work for.
And Nicolas, what kind of leader are you? How would you define yourself? How would others define you?
I'm a competitor. I love sports, and I try to be demanding for myself and demanding for everybody, because we have big goals to achieve. Being number one and increasing our gap with competition is not that easy, so you need to be really passionate about it. And I would say I believe a lot in the power of the team. I believe in the collective. For all my youth, I was doing collective sports, and today I'm a passionate cyclist. And some people think cyclism or biking is a solo sport, but actually, if you watch the Tour de France, you'll see it's really a team sport where you have to protect yourself from the wind, help each other. So I like to build teams that are complementary, empower them. I listen a lot to what my teams have to say, and build complementarity. So I like to surround myself with very strong people that may be stronger than I am in their particular area, and we work together really at making this great company continue to succeed.
So what do you think is the secret sauce of L'Oreal to always keep this competitive advantage?
Well, I think if I take the top 300 managers of L'Oreal, their average tenure is 18 years in the company. So you have this very strong corpus of people that share the same passion and the same way to do business. We constantly bring in new people, even at higher level, to rejuvenate the blood. But we have this very strong culture, and it's indeed the secret sauce is this. At all level, you have very passionate, competitive people that love beauty and that have fun. I think part of the secret is that we have fun.
Coming up, Nicolas Hieronimus on the challenges of going green, including the company's target to use 100% recycled plastic by the end of the decade. Nicolas Hieronimus oversees a vast portfolio of beauty products with a constantly changing landscape of science and environmental demands. He tells me how L'Oreal is reacting to the climate crisis and how the challenge is reshaping what it means to be a chief executive. Nicolas, you talk about this big sense of purpose. What does that mean for sustainability?
We started working on sustainability topics in the early 2000s. We had our first Sharing Beauty with All program in 2013, and that led us to reduce our CO2 emissions by 90% whilst increasing our production by 45%. So we've really managed to decouple CO2 emissions from growth. So we are, of course, enticing and stimulating our suppliers who also need to do their sustainability transformation to do it as fast as possible, because they are our impact. But also we are investing to help consumers contribute, because in the end, for example, if you talk about packaging or plastic, the best way to reduce plastic is to convert as many consumers as possible to refills. And all our new fragrances, you probably saw the new Prada Paradox, which is a great success, by the way. There is the fragrance, but then you can buy refills, which are much lighter in glass and packaging, so you keep your original bottle. And today, 25% of our Luxe portfolio is refillable. So now it's about convincing consumers to change. We're also launching products that are non-rinsed products to avoid water consumption. And we are, in our advertising, again, trying to convince consumers to reduce their water consumption. So it's across the whole supply chain, we have to act. So
what's the hardest?
Yeah, well, there are many things that are difficult. For example, if I take plastic, we've committed to have 100% recycled plastic by 2030. Today, the availability of recycled plastic is not big enough for us to transform everything. We have 80% of our PET, but for other parts of the plastic, it's not yet available. So we are co-investing, and we are investing with our own VC in new technologies that will provide ways to recycle plastic. So some things have not been made available yet technologically, but I guess I believe in human creativity and innovation that will provide us for solutions. But packaging is one issue, and of course we work continuously on water, both on our own consumption, but that's kind of, quite easy to do, but also on changing consumers' habits.
Is there a segment of the consumer that's more in tune with maybe buying products that seem greener?
Well, the younger generations are more, of course, pay more attention to sustainability, and so they are looking at brands that are greener. But you have to make sure you're authentic, because they hate greenwashing. But what is very important to remember is that none of them, whether they're young or not, will ever sacrifice product quality and efficacy to sustainability, which is why, part of the big transformation of our R&I, where there's this €1 billion we spend every year, most of it is spent on transforming our formulas from petrochemicals to biosourced ingredients and green sciences, but without losing the efficacy. And I think that in the future, if we talk about competition, the winners will be, and it's very difficult to achieve, those who can create products that are both green, effective, and safe. I know how hard it is, so I don't think many that do not invest so much in research will manage to do it.
Where will you be in 5 years? Where will L'Oreal be in 5 years?
Well, in 5 years, if 2030, let's talk 2030, the market should be maybe 380 or 90 billion euros. So L'Oreal, I hope that L'Oreal will be above 60 billion euros and continuously growing. But more importantly, in the end, I consider that my role, of course, is to grow the business. But it's a legacy. I'm the 6th CEO in 114 years, and my objective is to leave the company in even greater shape than it was. And maybe one of the things that have changed, if I could end with that, is that probably, a couple of years ago, being a CEO was about beating the others. It was winning the game against the others. We still have to gain and to win share, but more and more we have to work, and that ties back to the collective idea. We have to work together. And I like the idea that sometimes I take my phone and I will call the CEO of one or two of our competitors to work together at creating solutions for the world. We've launched this consortium to create the Eco Score, which will be an international standard for products in terms of how sustainable they are, for consumers to be able to make the right choices. And I like when we, as an industry, we not only make sure we make people look good, feel better, but also we work together having positive impact on the planet.
Nicolas Hieronimus, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Francine. It was a pleasure.